On episode 195 of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, we meet Dr. Joan Vernikos and discuss her book, Designed to Move. You can find full show notes for this episode at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/195. Have you decided you're ready to make a change? To reclaim your health and fitness? The 40 Plus Fitness podcast is here for you. I'm your host, Alan Meisner. I'm an NSAM certified personal trainer with a specialization in corrective exercise and fitness nutrition. Let me be your coach as you find your way on your health and fitness journey. All right, let's go. Dr. Joan Vernikos, former director of NASA's Life Science Division and pioneering researcher in the physiology of immobility, has done groundbreaking research on how sitting disease causes poor health and premature aging. With no further ado, here's Dr. Joan Vernikos. So, Joan, welcome to 40 Plus Fitness.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here.
You know, the book title, Designed to Move, just is kind of one of those things that just resonated with me because I've probably, those words have probably come out of my mouth on this podcast almost as much as avoid sugar. It's just one of those things that I can't emphasize enough to folks that our bodies were designed to move.
Good for you.
So I really do appreciate that title. And then I read the subtitle and I ran across something and it said, fight sitting disease. And I guess I've never seen or thought of it as sitting disease, but would you mind taking just a moment to kind of talk about that subtitle, sitting disease?
Well, when I started talking about the consequences of sitting and how similar they were to what the astronauts experience in space, because that's where I came from, it just wasn't pervasive. It didn't appear to be pervasive. It was a pre-diabetic state, maybe obesity. But what has happened in the last 5 years since my first book, Sitting Kills, came out, is that there have been a phenomenal number of analyses of data from all kinds of places, showing relationships to cancer, to stroke, to cardiovascular disease, to diabetes, of course, and obesity, to prostate cancer, to breast cancer, what else? Balance disorders. It's just, you name it, there is a damning effect of sitting. Aging, of course. Yes. Is preeminent in all these symptoms that we see with sitting. And so it stops being one kind of example of a variable. It is a disease.
You know, one of the interesting things that, I always kind of look for connections as I'm going through this, beyond the fact that I love to say our body was designed to move. The interesting thing was, in 1986, I was a sophomore in college. So I'm a little bit younger, just a couple years younger than you are. But I was a sophomore in college, majoring in physics, and I was working for NASA. That was my end goal, was to be at NASA, hopefully being what I would call at this point a pilot, because I didn't think of them as astronauts. If you were just going up and flying back and forth and that's just normal stuff, at that point you just call it a pilot. You don't call it an astronaut anymore. And so I was thinking in terms of, the space shuttle program and everything that was going on there when I was in college. And then of course in 1986, the Challenger exploded, and that kind of changed my whole life path considerably. So it's really kind of interesting as I was reading through your book and you were talking about how, you started looking at zero movement and the astronauts and, how they were dealing with gravity or how they had to deal with microgravity, which again, thank you for reminding me of that term because it's been a long time since I've heard that one. You always think of zero G's, not microgravity. So it was just, it kind of had to really wrap my head. So yeah, good. So I like, there's little, nerdy things about your book that I just really enjoyed. But, then we kind of take it down here to earth and we say, okay, well, we have the advantage of gravity. Mm-hmm. And I like how you put it in the book is that the gravity is actually our friend. And so but unfortunately with the way, the work climate has gone and the way kind of just our lifestyles have gone, we've become sedentary. And you started on this a little bit. You probably covered a little bit of this already, but that sedentary lifestyle has really affected our health and our longevity. Could you take just a few minutes to kind of talk about that?
I think it's really very interesting to look at the history, and I always enjoy looking at history and how we got here. And, you think of the electric bulb, and the electric bulb enabled us to work 24 hours a day. We didn't work 24 hours a day before that, really. I mean, candles were okay for some people who worked on manuscripts, but that was about it.
You're not going to work the fields with candles.
No, right, exactly. And so progress from there to the Industrial Revolution, electricity, and on and on and on. And with space, we've exponentially really made discoveries of appliances and technologies, all advertised as designed to make your life easier. Whoopee. What does that mean?
Well, it means I don't have to hand scrub my clothes.
Yeah.
I can put them into a machine, and then I can go sit down and watch an episode of Cheers. And then I can go back and pick them out and put them in a dryer, and then go back and watch, an episode of something else, and then pull them out of the dryer, and I can fold them. And I might be standing up while I'm folding them, maybe standing up while I'm folding them, watching the next episode of whatever else is on. So yeah, I completely get that. It's as our lives have become easier, we have let that put us into our place.
Yes, but we have been lulled into an existence that is not normal because we biologically need to move.
Yes. And again, anyone that's been on this heard this podcast knows that I make that very, very clear. And I really do kind of like how this evolution in you, this history of you, and how, looking at how astronauts are going to deal with zero gravity. And we look at excuses and I think, okay, if I were in zero gravity, how would I get a workout? But you talked about astronauts that literally trained for marathons while they were in space.
Yes.
And I just, again, just love that mindset of, and, granted, a lot of the folks that are doing that, they were younger individuals, but then you even go into the book and say, Senator Glenn went back up, what was it, 77 when he went back up? So, yeah, I mean, it just your history and what you've learned, I think is just phenomenal. And I really appreciate you sharing this in the book. You made a statement in the book that I thought was really, really interesting. Anytime someone can make me stop and think for a minute, I really appreciate that. And you did with this statement: health is not the same as fitness.
Uh-huh. Yes. It had to be said. First of all, what is fitness? You're fit to do something. There's no such thing as fitness. You get fit to enable you to do something, whether it's to run a marathon or to lift your grandchild or child or, whatever it is, you are fit to do something. And in order to do that, you need to move in a way that you're able to do it. And so if you are training for a marathon, you really go flat out on every machine and every track. And the Kenyans don't even use machines, and they win them all the marathons. You are fit to run a marathon. Great. Are they healthy? No.
Well, yes or no, but they're not. You're basically demonstrating they're not the same thing. They're not mutually exclusive. They're two different things. They can be two different things.
Yeah, they can be two different things. And most of us, I think, aspire, I do, to be healthy till I drop dead.
Yes.
I know it's jarring.
Well, no. I've interviewed a lot of authors on here that have done books on longevity.
Yes.
And it's kind of a common theme in their books is there's no sense living till you're 100 if the last 15 of those years are not healthy years.
Exactly.
And so when we aspire to do something, we think, okay, well, we want to be able to do what we want to do, which that's where the fitness comes in. So being able to pick up my grandchild, being able to care for myself, get out of the seat, go get what I need to have the fitness to, drive to the store, to do the different things that I need to do to live the lifestyle I want to live. That's the fitness aspect of it. But I don't want to be the individual that's also then unhealthy, despite the fact I can do those things.
Correct. Now, they are not mutually exclusive, what you just described, which is what I call a low level of activity, a low level of fitness that enables you to be independent and healthy. It's healthy, especially. What do we want to be? We want to feel well. We want to feel well. We want to have energy, and we want to feel well, and we want to be independent. Now, we have been brainwashed, if you will, that exercise will cure everything. And first of all, not too many people, really, the proportion in the world that go to a gym and exercise is very huge. But, did you exercise today?
Yes.
Did you exercise? Good. And someone exercised in the last 3 days, once a day, 3 times a week, 20 minutes, 1 hour. We are just tweaking to see what might be better. But I think we should do it differently, look at the problem differently. What if I said you stop exercising? Oh, that would be a radical concept. And then let us try to reconstruct what happens and how we can find out what we really need.
And I don't disagree with that, but realize I am also a fitness guy. So recognizing that you lose a little bit of muscle mass every year if I'm not doing something to maintain that muscle mass.
Correct.
My bone density is going to go down every year if I'm not doing something to maintain that bone density. So eventually my fitness to do the things that I want to do will go down if I don't exercise. So
correct.
I get that.
The thing is what you should do.
Yes.
And how you should do it.
Absolutely.
And what I discovered through my research and through just really stepping back and asking the question is that there is a level of activity that we indulge in. Our parents, our grandparents used to indulge in that, certainly, all day, every day, including weekends, that is below the threshold of what we think of as exercise. And now there are beginning to be at least 2 clinical studies, maybe that I've mentioned in the book, that have come out that show that moderate activity is better at counteracting sitting than intense activity. So that sort of makes you think that because we really think of exertion as exercise, let's think of it as moving. And moving is different than exercise in the sense that I think of it as moving in the sense using gravity as your force, as your exercise, if you will.
Yes.
As your tool. Okay. And if you do that, then I can tell you now with some certainty what works and what doesn't. So there are at least 5 things related to using gravity that are taken away in space or sitting. And they are key to our health and feeling well and with minimal effort. Okay, so below exercise, below the threshold of exertion, there is a band of activity, a band of moving that we've ignored and we've lost or we're losing. And we're losing because of the way we live. Modern life has robbed us of this band of movement. And these 5 things that have been taken away in space or sitting are key to our health and feeling well. So for number 1 is upright posture, is alignment. And alignment with the vertical direction of gravity. And upright posture. And what I do in my talks is very simple. I tell them to put their arm out and to hold it there for the rest of my talk. And of course, after a while, it gets a bit heavy. And they laugh and they giggle and take it down. I said, okay, now put your arm straight up. And you can hold it there for hours. It doesn't feel heavy because it is aligned with your body. So being aligned upright in the sense of gravity spares your body, is easy on your body, is the easiest position you have. And of course, it spares your spine and your back, and you don't get back pain, as opposed to slumping in a chair and being supported. So posture and alignment are important. The change in posture, the alternating signal that the brain gets, the inner ear and the brain gets from just changing posture. That, of course, in space disappears. We don't have it. And we learned very early of the importance of that. Well, the same thing happens if I sit for 6 hours or 10 hours a day continuously. I am not changing posture. I am not sending a signal to my inner ear that, it needs to do something. It is stimulated. So it goes silent. That whole system goes silent. And change in posture is imperative as a signal. It's like a tuning fork. And you need to give it little stimuli every so often. Okay, we'll come to the how often, but every so often. So that when I need to run and chase that tiger or whatever.
Yeah, you would be the one chasing the tiger. Everybody else is running from the tiger. You're the one chasing it.
I know. In my dreams, I see myself chasing the tiger. So that change in posture is terribly important, which means that sitting is not really the culprit. Uninterrupted sitting is the culprit. We have to sit so that we stand. I mean, it just makes sense, doesn't it?
Yes.
It's either one or the other. But we need to interrupt sitting with standing.
One of the ways I put it out there is if someone actually sat down on the floor.
Yes.
And you could sit there, maybe cross your legs at first. And what you'd find is within about 5 minutes or so, you'd get a little uncomfortable. So maybe you'd put your legs over to your side and you'd sit like that for a little while. Then you'd maybe put them over to the other side, and then you'd try to put them straight out. And maybe you'd lean back a little bit. So sitting on the floor kind of is one of those stimuli that like you said, with the tuning fork, just kind of keeps us a little uncomfortable and keeps us moving. But when we get into the cushy chairs, as you mentioned in the book, we can just let it all go, and we can just sit there and be in that position forever and not have that stimuli.
I like the way you described that. That's very good. I'll have to adopt it. So the next thing is this interruption has a frequency. How frequent? Well, I had done the last experiment I ever did at NASA was asking the question, if I lie in bed 24 hours a day continuously, how many times and how often do I need to stand up and walk, I thought, to prevent the changes that I see in space or lying in bed or sitting or whatever. And it turned out to be at least every hour on the hour. And I thought, when people asked me that probably it would be about 20 minutes to 30 minutes. And that was because if you measure the hormones that are produced in response to a change in posture, say to standing up, there's a whole bunch of hormones that increase, the blood volume changes, a lot of changes happen. They happen within the first 20 minutes. And then in spite of the fact that you're standing, they settle down. So 20 minutes seems to be the response. Now, if every 20 or 30 minutes I added another stimulus, then I could keep that system responding. And that's where I got the 20 minutes, 30 minutes. People say, oh, we just say 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but nobody really knows. Well, yeah, we know. It's just, there is a reason why we came up with that. But it's just hung around there and no one knows where it came from. So the 20 to 30 minute frequency is important. So if you can stand up every 20 or 30 minutes, now there's a wonderful, wonderful cue to that. And that's commercials on television. And every 20 or 30 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, you get a commercial.
Well, it depends on the popularity of the program. Some of them now, I think they have a commercial every 5 minutes, but yeah. But I get
how much
you.
money they make.
Well, then, you just stand up more often. So that's actually probably even better.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. I don't mind that. So if you stood up at the commercials, who wants to watch them anyway? Sorry. Probably somebody thinks that it should. But if you stood up during the commercials, or if you somehow triggered to your life so that you could stand up frequently, then you'd be okay. Now, I tell people in offices that you need to structure your environment so that you need to stand up. We no longer have water fountains. Okay, we have a bottle that we stick on our desk. Well, put the bottle on the next desk so that when you want to drink, you get up and go and get the bottle to drink. The more you drink, the more times you have to get up and go to the bathroom. I mean, you can structure your life. Don't send an email to the guy who's sitting in the office next to you. Get up and go and talk with them. Have stand-up meetings. I used to have 10-minute stand-up meetings at NASA. You're in a meeting where everybody's sitting down. Get up. Maybe the others will follow you. I mean, there are ways you can structure your life once you become aware. And awareness is probably the key to the whole thing. You want to be healthy, you've got to start by being aware of what you are doing to yourself and to your body and how you can incorporate new habits in the course of your day without having a Fitbit or somebody that has to keep reminding you.
Yeah,
but
I love those tools, though. I do love those tools. I'm a techno geek, so I love those things. And so I have a Fitbit and I have a Pavlok, and all these little tools and things that I can use that'll do that. But you're right. You have to know yourself, and you kind of just have to figure out how to generally get this awareness of, okay, I've been sitting here too long, and what do I need to do to make sure that I don't repeat this behavior, because this is not the behavior that's going to give me the lifestyle I want.
And I think we have to appreciate that technology is not going to stop developing, and creativity and technology is going to continue. And it's going to get worse rather than better. More frequent, more ways to help us not be our normal selves.
They solved the bathroom problem.
Yeah, whatever. There you go. Now that would be brilliant.
Well, that's what I'm sure NASA's worked on that one for a while too.
Oh gosh, yeah, they hate going to the bathroom. It's such a palaver. So the frequency is important, and all day, every day is very important, because that's nature. I mean, what do you do when you wake up and open your eyes? What do you do?
Well, I now do something a little different than I've done in the past. I actually lay there for a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. And the reason I lay there for a little bit longer is, what I understand is that in that initial waking moment, you're going through a cortisol surge. Mm-hmm. And so what I've learned is that it's kind of just good for me to lay there awake, but just take a few deep breaths and sort of just collect for a second. But that's that. I mean, I've read that, and I've seen studies that have said you have this cortisol surge, and the way to kind of reduce the total cortisol in your system is just to lay there for a little while. But yeah, typically the first thing you're going to do is shift your body position and or get out of bed.
Yeah. I mean, I do a little bit of meditating. Not very much, but it's similar.
Yeah.
Really. It's breathing and relaxing and review preview, as my uncle used to call it. Anyway, and then you get up, right? And then what do? You take a step.
Headed to the coffee maker.
Coffee maker, right. The bathroom and the coffee maker in whichever order you prefer.
Yes.
And then you are designed, your body biologically says it is now day. You move until it is night, and you go horizontal and you go to bed, and then you sleep. I mean, that's the sort of normal cycle. It's intended, daylight hours are intended to be moved in. That's not very good English, is it?
No, but it's fine. I get that because, again, I'm kind of a big proponent of how our bodies are designed, basically based on how we as a species would have lived our lives for most of the time that we've been here. And so for, however many thousands, tens of thousands of years that we've been on this planet, we have gotten up in the morning, and typically we probably started moving around to forage and hunt.
Yes.
And it wasn't an intense, like you said, it was a reasonable speed, because there's no reason for us to exhaust ourselves before we find what we're there to get. Berries and plants are not going to run from us, so those are very easy to just take care of. An animal that we may want to hunt, now we have a short exertion, but we're not gonna go out of our way and burn too much energy to do that. We're going to do just what we have to do. Once we've done the hunting, then we'll come back in the evening. We'll sit around a campfire. We'll prepare the food, and after we've eaten and it's dark, we'll go back to sleep, and we'll repeat the cycle the next morning. So from an evolutionary perspective of how we would have lived most of our history, that's the natural movement pattern that you would expect. But we don't quite do that anymore. Now we're in our car, by 7 or 7:30, we're driving to an office, and then we're going to be sitting in that office for 8 hours. And even when we're going to break for lunch, we'll walk to the break room and we'll sit down and we'll eat our lunch sitting down. And literally, you start counting the number of hours in a day that you're sitting, and you're literally sitting more hours than you were moving. And you're actually probably sitting more hours than you were even sleeping. And you add your sleeping time and your sitting time, and that probably makes up 80% of your total day.
Yeah.
24-hour period of time. And that's completely different from the way we've lived. Our species has lived for forever.
And that's what makes your muscle waste and your bones density decrease, and your gut doesn't work right, and your microbiome is upset because it doesn't recognize why you're doing this to it. And your brain isn't functioning quite the same. Your balance goes to pot at 20, not 60 and 80. And you see, what happens is during development, it used to be, it no longer is, but during development, it used to be that from the day you were born to 20, you were developing. And kids intuitively do things related to gravity without anybody telling them what. They hop and they jump and they skip and they hang upside down and they, skip rope and do whatever kids do, which all helps in the development. And at peak development you quit. You go to college, you sit, and then you go to the office and you sit.
Well, and they start that. And unfortunately, we start that very young now. As soon as they're 4 or 5 years old, we're sending them to a classroom where we're training them to be able to sit for periods of time. And then we've developed the video games that they want to sit. And so I think now, by the time the kids are even into high school, they've been trained to sit most of their time. And you can see any kid. Kids aren't standing around playing. They're sitting. Yeah. They're looking for a place to sit down.
Exactly. And they sit stooped, slumped. They don't sit aligned with gravity. They sit over their messaging, texting, whatever thing they're holding in their hands.
Yes.
And that they're doing during development instead of the skipping and jumping that we used to do. Well, you used to do too, I'm sure.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I didn't have a cell phone when I was a kid.
Thank goodness for that. But now they can't help it. I mean, they sit to eat and they have this thing and they put it under their pillow, they tell me. So that I said, what for? Oh, well, when I wake up, I said, can't you put it, 2 steps away so that you actually have to reach out for it? Well, no, it's under my pillow. Oh my God.
Yeah, my cell phone right now, I couldn't even tell you where it is. I'm of a generation. My wife's not quite that way, but so I don't know. Maybe I'm just weird, but I'm one of those people that can be more than arm reach away from a cell phone and not miss it. Now, I am a little addicted to other pieces of equipment like my computer and whatnot. That's not healthy either. Sure. But I do look at those things. And so before we get out of here, you have at the end of the book, you have 8 key steps to enjoying lifelong health. And it would kill me if we couldn't at least touch on some of those, because I do think a lot of those are brilliant. And we've touched on some of them a little
Yes.
bit. So if you could, just pick one or two of those that you really think are important to share with us today. And then we can go ahead and wrap this up.
Okay. Number one, I put upright posture. Sitting, standing spares the spine. So as long as you're aligned, whichever way you're sitting or you're standing or you're doing whatever you're doing, make sure you try and be aligned. What I used to do, what we used to do, maybe you did, is if you put a book on your head and you're not aligned, it'll fall off.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've had a book on my head, but yes, I have.
But
yes, it helps. It does. It makes you concentrate on building that line. And I think the current thing that I've heard people use that I've used more recently is imagine at the very crown of your head that there's a string
pulling you up,
and someone's pulling you up. And if you lift your chin up to that level where you're looking straight across and you're looking and focusing on the crown. Now, the book might actually be a better solution to go back to. So,
the book
I'll go with the book. Yeah, that's probably a better one.
The book was not a bad thing.
No.
And the other thing is the sitting upright is just as important. So if you're going to be sitting, don't slump and slouch, because you don't want your heavy head being pulled down by gravity. You want to be able to sit back in a chair with that book on your head or whatever it is, and your feet flat on the ground if you possibly can. And if you remind yourself every so often to push your elbows back to your back, and then relax again and push it back. And then even if you're just sitting there for hours and then you can't for some reason get up, at least if you can sit aligned with gravity.
Yeah, and I think one of the tips here that I'll put in there is a lot of us work in offices where if you ask them to bring in someone to help you with the ergonomics of your workstation, and you want your screen to be lifted higher, that's kind of one of those mindset things of sitting there and literally if you have a book on your head and you're sitting upright and your screen is now aligned with your eyes, which is what I have right now. I have an adjustable desk in my home office, and I literally have my computer lifted up. There's a couple different reasons. One is apparently video from up higher down on you actually looks better. So if I'm doing anything on the laptop with video, they say it looks better. And then the other side is literally the screen that I'm looking at right now is straight in front of my eyes with me standing upright with a good posture. So, if there's things you can do in your office to help maintain that upright posture, and again, having any kind of ergonomic specialist come in, that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to look at where your elbow bends to have your keyboard in the right position, and they're going to allow you to be in that good upright posture as you work, which will help here tremendously. So thanks for that share.
Yeah. Secondly, change in posture often. We talked about that. Interrupt sitting, basically. So how do you get dressed in the morning? Balance comes into it, which is terribly important. From age 20 on, your balance starts getting shot. And unless I went around asking receptionists at doctors' offices and realtors how they get dressed in the morning, and they thought, this crazy old woman is asking me these questions. And they said, well, I sit down, put my jeans on. I said, and my shoes. I said, okay. And that's at 20. I said, do you look at your feet as you go down the stairs? Well, yeah. Hold on the balustrade. Little things like that. Continue getting dressed, standing up, and getting undressed, standing up. Just those two little things in a week. If you do them regularly, your balance is improved. So just be careful. I'm going to preface this with the one thing is realize that your balance right now might not be as good as you want it to be. So don't be standing in an area where if you do fall, you're going to injure yourself. So we do want that disclaimer is have yourself in a spot where if you do lose your balance, you're not going to injure yourself. But over time, you will find that doing those little things and will work a dynamic in your brain. And when your brain starts connecting with the muscles and understanding how
to counterbalance and do what it needs to do to get you in that right place, then yeah, you are going to see that improvement in balance really quickly. Like you said, within days, really, you'll start noticing an improvement in the balance. But just make sure you're doing it in a safe environment. So
near the bed. Or
yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Because I've actually tried that. I do that every once in a while. I'll sit there and say, I want to be able to put on these tight. They're smaller tennis shoes, but I'm like, I want to be able to put these things on without having to sit down. And I, really sitting there with my balance. I'm like, okay, I don't want to do this anywhere where if I fall, I'm going to hit my head on a countertop or something.
You're sensible. Yeah. The third one is things that you pay to have done. Maybe you should go back and do them yourself, like housework, gardening, standing up at TV commercials, things you can do all day around the house, ideally things with a purpose. So the movement we're talking about is purposeful movement. It's not getting on a what do you call it, a treadmill and going nowhere. You're doing something with a purpose and you feel satisfaction when it's done. And that is part of and parcel of the movement formula, I think.
Yes. Next,
the car. Again, it's unfortunate, but there we are. We're stuck now in cars. But sitting up, stretching, gently twisting at a traffic light, first on one side and then the next traffic light, just twisting from the torso up, not the head, but the torso up, so that there is some stretching while you're stopped in front of a traffic light. May help relieve some of the back pain. But of course, if you can walk to work, bike to work, or take public transport, you might be saving yourself a lot of non-sitting time.
And there's other things. I mean, just, I couldn't walk to work. My office is about 60 miles from here. Oh. So that would probably not work very often. But, my grocery store, there's a grocery store within 2.5 miles of here.
Yes.
Maybe within 1.5 miles. I haven't fully measured it out. It might be even closer than that. So, if I just need to go pick up, a couple bags of stuff on a, Saturday morning, maybe that's a good opportunity for me to, and I've done that, actually done that before, is just that I'm going to walk to the grocery store and buy my groceries. And the other thing I found, and this is one of the cool little hacks, is you don't spend as much when you have to carry it home.
That's right. That's right. You don't want to be carrying bags you didn't count on. Okay, the fifth is the office. Go up and down the stairs, for heaven's sake. Don't use the elevator. You might actually enjoy it more. And it's if you do it on a regular basis, it becomes a habit.
Yeah. And I found people can kind of ease into that. Like I'm on the 4th floor in the building I work in. And for people that first start out, 4 floors might be a little intense. So maybe what you do is you take the elevator. Maybe you walk up to the 2nd or 3rd floor the first couple times you do this, and then you take the elevator from there.
Yes.
Particularly if you live in you work in a tall building, or if you live in a tall building, just, taking those first few flights of stairs and then getting on the elevator from that floor will kind of give you that sense of over time, the level of improvement you're getting, because, maybe when you first started doing this, the 2nd and 3rd floor were where you wanted to get on the elevator, and now you're finding yourself on the 5th or 6th floor before you start making that choice. Those are measurable criteria, things that you can really show that you've done something to improve your health and your fitness.
Exactly. And you can start by going up the stairs and taking the elevator down, or vice versa, so that because there are different muscles and different postures. Make equipment hard to reach. Put your printer more than an arm's length away. In the office design, structure your environment. We talked about that, and encourage standing up. The 6th is play. Now, I'm big on play.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites too.
and in Europe, in Finland, in Germany, there are playgrounds for seniors. Our playgrounds are not used most of the time. I sent out a notice to the schools that I would be at the playground between 3 and 5 every afternoon. And if children wanted to come and play. So there was an adult there. I was there. And it was amazing how many children and their parents actually came to use the playground.
It's awesome.
It can be done. You want to volunteer for something? Well, here it gets you out and it gets them the play and the activity and the fun and the social aspect, which is so important. And in fact, you can go when nobody's using them and swing on a swing. And that stimulates your inner ear and it's very good for your balance. So juggling is also very good. I'm a lousy juggler.
Me too.
But, if you persevere, tennis balls or whatever you start with, just the fact that you have to pick them up after they fall is excellent activity. We talked about putting a book on your head. 7, stretch. Now, stretching is terribly important. And as I said, even when you're sitting at your desk, to push your elbows back and stretch. When you stand up, stretch up. Wave your arms around. It used to be considered impolite to do that, but I don't think in this day and age it matters very much.
No one's looking up from their phones to notice.
Oh, how right you are. Sad, but there you are. So I think stretching up and pushing your shoulders back is both excellent stretching activities that you can do at any time. And 8, least, but also very important, is to relax completely. And I think that is not adhered to. People go and watch television in bed, but you can lie down on the floor and just relax and let gravity pull you down through the floor. It's a wonderful sensation of just feeling totally letting go and totally relaxing. Because in order to move properly, you have to also know how to relax. And if you don't know the sensation and you don't have that feeling, it's very hard to identify, where you are when you're moving or exercising. So move, sleep, and eat, I guess.
And play, yes. That's excellent. And, again, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I was really excited to talk to you, kind of seeing your history of working with NASA and what you've gone through and what you've learned. And, again, the book is Designed to Move. Love the title, love the concepts. This is a really good book to kind of just give you that basis of understanding of what our body should be doing and what we can do to get back to that level of health and enjoyment in life. Because, our unwillingness or basically the fact, like you said, we've been lulled into this non-motion, this sedentary lifestyle is what's making us hurt in many cases. And it's what's making us unhealthy. And just starting a movement practice, not necessarily an exercise practice, although I would say that there's probably some room for that as well, but just finding that movement in your life and adding more of it as you go, getting more comfortable with it, I think it's just going to go a long way towards making your life a much higher quality and probably a little bit longer too. So as the studies showed, you had in the book. So thank you so much for sharing this. If someone wanted to get in touch with you, where would you like for me to send them?
Send them to my website, www.joanvernikos.com. And if they were interested in the book, and there is a good descriptions and excerpts from the book on the Amazon books, Designed to Move posting.
Okay. And now I will make sure to have the links in the show notes. This is episode 195. So you can go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/195 to find those links and connect with Joan and or get her book. When I do really recommend this book, it's a really good book. Just again, very practical. And Joan, you've shared such great tips with us today. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for being on 40 Plus Fitness.
Thank you. You've been a delight.
If you took something valuable from today's episode, would you please share it with friends and family? Thank you. Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, I discuss resolutions. Yep, it's that time of year again for us to start making our New Year's resolutions. And are you doing it right? We'll discuss that next time. Until then, have a happy and healthy day.